Hey guys, my name is Mal and welcome back to The Morgue. As you guys can see, or hear I should say, I am here by myself today. And let me just explain all of that real quick as to why I'm here by myself. So last night, me and Hannah, we hung out for a little bit and then we decided to go ahead and record. And I had downloaded a program on my computer so that we could hopefully be able to use two separate microphones, because if you've ever podcasted before, it's kind of hard to podcast with just one microphone and you have two hosts. And so I was doing a lot of research, found this program. I had done a few little test records and everything sounded great. And even once I went over there right before we recorded, it sounded perfectly fine. I did not see a single problem with it. And then we recorded the whole episode. I come back today to actually do all of the editing on it and everything. And it sounds like shit. To be honest, it does not sound good. It's very choppy, very stop and go sort of sound. It's very with every single thing throughout the whole entire recording. And I'm not sure if maybe whenever it got saved that it messed up, or maybe it was because, I don't know, I shut off my computer last night. I don't know. I don't know. I'm confused. So if you guys have any suggestions as to what program I can use that will help me be able to use two microphones, please let me know, because I need all the help that I can get on that end. And yeah, so here I am. I'm re-recording and I'm here by myself, and this is going to be a great episode. But before I begin, I do just want to remind everyone that we will be having subscriptions around the 1st of November or so. I don't have an exact date yet, but around that time we will be having subscriptions. And another thing before I begin, if you guys hear a pupper in the background, it is my dog Cece. She can be a little loud and she doesn't know what shush I'm recording means. So if you hear her, it's just Miss Ceceana in the background. House of a Thousand Corpses is a 2003 horror movie written and directed by Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie, if you didn't already know, was a musician at first, and he was in a band called White Zombie from 1985 to 1997, 8-ish. After the band broke up in 1998, Zombie he had a very successful solo music career, and he had his debut album Hellbilly Deluxe, 13 Tales of Cadaverous Cavorting Inside the Spook Show International, and it reached number 5 on the Billboard Top 200 with the first week sales of 121,000 copies. That's a lot of copies. Zombie formed his own record label, and he was pretty successful making music and directing his own music videos. Those can include the song Dragula, which was featured in Idle Hands, and Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, which we will be covering in the future for sure. Sorry, not sorry to all the people that hate on Blair Witch 2. I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, but it's fucking hilarious, and I love the chaos. And then one of my favorites, Living Dead Girl, was featured in Bride of Chucky, my favorite Chucky movie. And at the end of 1999, Zombie got the idea for House of a Thousand Corpses, allegedly while designing a haunted house attraction with that title for Universal Studios. And I think it was Halloween Horror Nights, but I'm not 100% sure. I could not get a clear answer on that. And Zombie said that he pitched the idea to Universal in early 2000, and he says that they responded very positively to the pitch. Filming began in May of 2000, and it said that there was a lot of issues with filming, which included a lot of script changes, and due to it being filmed on Universal's backlot, tours would come through and they would completely have to stop filming because tourists would walk around the sets and stuff. And I just feel like that would be so stressful. I would go crazy. And while filming, Zombie actually took the creative initiative to film 2 different takes of a lot of the scenes. For example, he would shoot some scenes with little to no blood, and then he would film it again with all the blood that you can imagine. And that was mostly due to the very strict MPAA. We know that of the MPAA because of the Scream franchise. They were big on censoring, and they're the reason why we don't see a lot of good, like, blood and guts in movies. And he would also do some scenes with red lighting and then do it again with white lighting. And a lot of those were actually intercut in some of the scenes in the final product, and they give like a total tonal difference to the scene. And it is also said that some of the scenes that were like thrown in, it's these ones that look a little bit more like gritty and home footage like. Those were actually shot in Zombie's basement after filming had ended. And those scenes were inspired by the Manson family whenever they filmed themselves. For example, there's this one cut scene where it's Baby and she's talking and she says, "Whatever you need to do, you do it. There is no wrong. If someone needs to be killed, you kill them. That's the way." And that's an almost direct quote from Sandy Good, who was one of the Manson family members. That's a big fucking yikes. And allegedly, an inspiration for the Firefly family is the Bender family. And they're also known as the Bloody Benders. And around the 1800s, they systematically murked travelers who unfortunately mistook their, like, just this disgusting manipulative ways, and they saw that as kindness somehow. And the Morbid podcast, I'm never going to stop plugging them. Morbid people, Ash and Elena, if y'all are listening, I love you. They have a great episode on the Bloody Benders, and it was one of the first episodes that I listened to, and that's episode number 69. But yes, go check that out. And it is said that Rob Zombie cut down the film to be 1 hour 45 minutes, but it was theatrically released at 1 hour and 29 minutes. And a lot of people ask what happened to the extra 16 minutes. And it is said that it was screened one time at a film festival in Argentina. And the copy floated around online for a little bit. But as of like me writing my notes, there are no known copies of the hour and 45 minutes cut. And Rob Zombie said that the material is not available, and I find that to be some bullshit, because from what I read, it's a lot of second and third hand, fourth hand accounts of what they saw at the film festival in Argentina. A lot of people say that it was a lot more bloody and gory, and me personally, I love blood and gore, not to the point of like the Terrifier movies. Those are just a little bit too much. I have to look away, but like, give me some more of this shit. You know, give me some more of this craziness. I'm totally here for it, and I want to hunt down that copy. And once the film was ready to be released, Universal completely dropped the project due to the studio's fear of it being rated NC-17, which, if you don't know about NC-17, that is what they call basically the box office killer, just because not a lot of theaters would accept movies that were rated NC-17. So Zombie actually bought back the movie, and he almost sold it to MGM, but then he made a little remark that made the studio's execs not very happy. He said something about MGM not having any morals. Big yikes. So they wouldn't have any problems releasing the film. And so they're like, peace out. So Zombie was just going to release it himself, but then Lionsgate, they're badasses. They came out the woodworks, and they completely were like ready to sign on to release the film. And so House of a Thousand Corpses stars Sid Haig as Captain Spaulding. Love Captain Spaulding. Sherry Moon Zombie as Baby. Bill Moseley as Otis. And if you didn't already know Bill Moseley, he was in, well, the most known thing in my opinion was that Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. He played Chop Top. Hello. Karen Black plays Mother Firefly. Erin Daniels plays Denise. Jennifer Jostin plays Mary. My boy Chris Hardwick plays Jerry. And I just have to say right now, Chris Hardwick, I love me some Chris Hardwick. I would always watch him on The Talking Dead after the Walking Dead episodes. And yes, I do only refer to Chris Hardwick as Chris Hardwick in these notes, because that's who he is to me. Because he's like, my name is Chris Hardwick and this is The Talking Dead. That's all I hear, so sorry. And then we have Rainn Wilson, who plays Bill. And of course, unless you live under a fucking rock, we all know that Rainn Wilson is on The Office. He plays Dwight Schrute. It was released on April 11th, 2003 in the United States with an estimated budget of $7 million. And it had an opening weekend box office of 3.4 million, but it had a gross worldwide of 16.8 million. So they doubled, a little bit more than doubled their budget. And like I said earlier, there was a runtime of 1 hour and 29 minutes, or 89 minutes. IMDb gave it a rating of 6.0 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 21% on the tomato meter and 65% audience score. And Letterboxd gave it a 3.2 out of 5. And I honestly agree with all of those except for that tomato meter. That 21% is a little bit too low, critics. But besides that, I feel like, the 6.0, 65%, 3.2 out of 5, that's a really good rating for this movie. It's right there perfectly in the middle, that sweet spot right in the middle. So we open up with a commercial, and it's for Dr. Wolfenstein's Creature Feature Show. Very fun. And then it's a commercial for Captain Spaulding's Museum of Monsters and Madness. And I want to fucking go. I want to go. Let's all just get a big group and we can go to this museum and then go on the murder ride and have a great time. And we cannot forget our fried chicken, okay? And so now we're suddenly at Captain Spaulding's gas station. It's October 30th, 1977. And Spaulding is chatting with some dude about the resale value of a signed nude photo. And we see the chief of police outside. He was filling up. He leaves the gas station, and the guy that Spaulding was talking to gets a bathroom key, and it's on a taxidermied gorilla hand, and it's flipping the bird, and it's the funniest shit ever. And he goes to the bathroom, and surprise, 2 bozo robbers come in, and they really try to rob Captain Spaulding, but he has other plans. When robber number 1 demands the money, Spaulding says, "Well, I'll tell you what, Ski King. Why don't you take your mama home some chicken? Then I won't have to stuff my boot all up in your ass." And robber number 1 says he hates chicken and he hates clowns. And that done really pissed off Spaulding, okay? Robber number 2 done pulled Homeboy out the bathroom, and Homeboy recognizes him as Little Dick Wick. Meanwhile, robber number 1 is giving Spaulding 10 seconds to give him the money, and he counts out loud. 1, Spaulding says, "Fuck your mama." 2, Spaulding says, "Fuck your sister." And 3, "Fuck your grandma." Meanwhile, the name calling of Little Dick Wick made him a little bit upset, and he takes off his monkey mask. Okay, so this mask, y'all, it was already too fucking small for this man's face, but then it's barely hanging on, and then he just decides to take it off. And so that pisses off robber number 1. So he also removes his little ski mask, and he's right about to shoot Spaulding. But then this guy comes into the room. He has on like this giant mask. He's covered in like this nasty like red and white paint, and it's gross. And he attacks the robber with the gun. And Spaulding is able to shoot Little Dick Wick in the head. He on the floor dead. Spaulding walks up to robber number 1, who is now like on the floor. He puts his big ass clown shoe on his chest, which was an absurd size clown shoe. I'm just saying, okay? Puts it on his chest. He points a gun at him and says, "Most of all, fuck you!" Then shoots him in the face 3 times. Bravo. Bravo. Because if someone's going to try to come rob me, I would do the same thing. Like, do not try me. And so then the screen goes black, and we hear Spaulding complaining about getting blood on his best clown costume. And then the guy that ran in, he's all laughing. It's like, and then we get a title card, and there's these opening credits, and they're weird as shit. I'm pretty sure we're watching someone get like embalmed or something. And even though I've seen this movie like probably like 8 or 9 times in the past, I never realized that some of the Firefly family are in the opening credit footage. I didn't realize that, and I feel like a dumbass. And so now we're on the road. We're in a car, and there are 4 people in the car. One of the guys, Jerry, which from here on out, Jerry is Chris Hardwick, okay? He says how some of the Manson chicks are hot because he's looking at a magazine, and I have to firmly disagree, because no. If you don't already know, Manson family, Charles Manson, they was out there wilding in the 60s doing acid and shit, and Charles Manson told them, hey, we need to go kill these people, right? So they went to Sharon Tate's house, they killed her while she was like 8 months pregnant, and they killed like 3 or 4 more people there. And then the next night they went over to the LaBianca's house and they killed the mom and the dad. And so they all got arrested. Charles Manson died in prison. And yeah, they were some nasty looking hippie chicks, and I bet you they smelled like ass. And anyways, the other guy, Bill, he questions how they're low on gas, and Jerry was supposed to have filled it up, but he's a straight up dumb and didn't. He said, oh yeah, I only put like $2 or $3 in it. And so then they see a sign for Captain Spaulding, so they head there. And there's some super odd transition choices in this movie, and I'm totally here for it, but some of them are just fucking weird. And this transition includes different shots of the museum sign, and it has some like dead people's faces stuck in there, and they're all in different color variations. So yeah. At Spaulding's, the group has arrived, and Chris Hardwick rudely wakes up the sleeping girlies in the back. Those are Mary and Denise. The group are on a cross-country road trip, finding all of the fire roadside attractions to write a guidebook for them. And to be honest, I would actually maybe buy it, because I love little, like, you know, cool little gas stations and shit and roadside attractions. I'm here for it. Inside, Spaulding has cleaned up the vast majority of the blood that was on the floor. He was in there mopping, and there's still like a little bit of red water, but we'll just ignore it for now. Bill talks to Spaulding for a minute and asks him literally one question. And Spaulding is like, how come you asking so many jackassy questions? Like, what? Let the man ask one question. And so Bill explains their road trip, and Spaulding gets really close to him, intimidates him for a minute.
I know what your problem is.
What's that?
Y'all think us folks from the country's real funny like, don't you?
Jerry?
Yeah, well, saddle up the mule, Ma. Slide me some grits. I's got to get me some education.
Jerry.
You asshole.
And then cracks a smile and says, gotcha. He was just joshing him the entire time. No big deal. And so now the girlies come out of the bathroom, and Chris Hardwick tells Denise that they bought tickets for the murder ride. Oh, hell yeah. Mary doesn't want to go on the ride, and neither does Denise, but they all decide to go anyway. And so quick transition to the ride. Spaulding is wearing an Uncle Sam costume, and he introduces the murder ride. The first person we see is Albert Fish, a nasty-ass child murderer and cannibal, and he enjoyed being spanked with nail-studded paddles and shoving needles into his groin. Little side note right here, Morbid Podcast also has an amazing 4-part Albert Fish episode, and I 10 out of 10 recommend, and no, I will not stop plugging Morbid. The next person we see is Ed Gein, aka the Butcher of Plainfield, who was a murderer, a suspected body snatcher, and he made furniture out of body parts and skin. Disgusting. And I'm also pretty sure that Morbid has a podcast on Ed Gein too, so go listen to that. The last person that we see is S. Quentin Query, aka Dr. Satan! And he was a murderer, torturer, and master surgeon. Basically, he was doing experimental surgeries on the mentally insane people, so they took revenge on him and took him out to a tree and hung his ass. And so the next day, his body was found missing, and there's been no trace of Dr. Satan since then. And the hanging tree is pretty close to where they are now. And then the ride ends. And so outside, Chris Hardwick comes bursting through the doors and is like,
That was so badass.
Dr. Satan! Ah, Dr. Satan!
and so same. Everyone else was like, it's all right. And Mary is like, I'm ready to go. But Denise is going to go call her daddy. And over at Denise's daddy's house, he's watching Dr. Wolfenstein. And Denise calls him and explains where they're at. She says that they're outside of Ruggville, they're at Captain Spaulding's, and that they will be a little bit behind schedule. And so it switches over to a TV set, and it's the news, and the anchors are telling us about 5 missing cheerleaders from Ruggsville High School. Big yikes. And so back at Spaulding's, Chris Hardwick begs Spaulding to make him a map of the hanging tree. or to the hanging tree, I should say. And Spaulding gives him the map, their complimentary chicken, and tells them not to let the door hit him on the way out. Understandable. He's probably like, you know what, y'all are here way past opening time. It's time for you to go. And so this transition right here is a little ominous. It's some missing posters, and it makes me feel just kind of ick. And so now in the car, it's raining, and the group sees a hitchhiker, and Bill insists that they can't just leave her in the rain. So of course they pick her up. Crazy. It's baby Firefly, and she says that she's heading home and that it's just up the road. And of course, Chris Hardwick has to ask if she knows where the hanging tree is. And she says yes, it's by her house. Now we get another transition, and this is the one where baby says,
whatever you need to do, you do it. There is no wrong. If someone needs to be killed, you kill them. That's the way.
Which, like I said earlier, based off the Manson family. They're slowly making their way down this really shitty looking road, and we see someone straight up hiding in the bushes, and they shoot out the group's front tire. The men end up getting out, and Bill says, "Oh, poop." And they're looking at the tire, and Bill asks if Chris Hardwick filled up the spare tire, and he says, "Yeah, I filled it up, but like, what if I didn't put it back in the trunk?" Sir. First it was the gas, now it's the tire. What the fuck? You were a dumbass. Back in the car, they formulate the plan to walk to baby's house because her brother has a tow truck, and so Bill and baby leave while the rest of the group stays put. At the Firefly house, this scene makes my fucking skin crawl because it's Otis, and he's basically doing this monologue, and these 3 missing cheerleaders are tied up in front of him. And during this, we get the example of that color switching I was talking about earlier. And it's going back and forth from red to white light. And it just makes literally my stomach turn. And these poor girls are being forced to look at this scary motherfucker. And like, he's all skinny and pale. And he has like this thinning platinum blonde hair. And like literally his eyes, like the actual color of his eyes are like reddish, and it like fades into blue, and it's really fucking creepy. He looks like a demon, okay? He is a demon. Baby and Bill arrive to the house, and baby goes around back to let him in, and Bill stares off into space for a second, but then baby gives him a bit of a jump scare and tells him that her brother already left to go get the others, and she pulls him inside, which I would not have went inside that house. I would have stayed my happy ass on the porch getting soaked by the rain. Back at the car, the girlies are playing cards, and Mary hears some like scraping outside. So she's like, "Ayo, Denise, do you hear that?" And Denise is like, "No." So she turns off the radio, and she's like, "Can you hear it now? Did you hear that scraping?" And she can't. And so Mary's like, "I'm gonna turn on the headlights." So she turns it on, and it's baby's brother out there looking all scary and shit. He's there to tow the truck, and this motherfucker doesn't even say anything. He just hikes the car up, and they bounce. And I'm sorry, sir, you are not even talking to me, and you're supposed to be towing my car. What if that was the wrong person? I mean, obviously, since this is a horror movie, it definitely is the wrong person. You do not want your truck towed by him. But what if this was like an okay scenario, you know? And it was just not the right person towing your truck. It could have been just like some rando off the side of the road. Like let's say Bill and baby went back to baby's house, and baby is perfectly fine. She's a perfectly normal person, okay? And she's like, "Yeah, my brother, he's about to leave to go get them," right? But then some other motherfucker shows up to the car, picks up the rest of the group, and then takes them to a house of horrors. That scary. That is scary. Okay? Anywho, back at the house, Bill hung up his clothes to dry, and he borrowed a shirt and some overalls, and I'm just like, no. Did you also borrow some underwear, sir? I would have sat there in my wet ass clothes. And so he sits down and he asks baby if it's just her and her brother who live there, and she says no, there's a bunch of them running around, and she thinks that Otis is upstairs messing around. Oh yeah, that motherfucker's definitely messing around. And we get a gross transition of this man assaulting the cheerleaders. I am uncomfy. And so baby brings Bill some hot chocolate, and we get a whole lot of butt crack from her because I swear them night pants that she had on, they told her, look, we gonna need you to wear these backwards, okay? Put the ass side on your cooch side and your cooch side on your ass side, because we need to make sure that we get all the ass crack that we can. And so baby gets all cozy on Bill, and they chat for a minute, and baby's trying to be like all sexy and shit by taking his glasses and putting them on and shit, and just trying to be like flirty. And then Bill takes a sip of hot chocolate, and he says, tasty, and she says,
Ain't the only thing tasty in this house.
ma'am, no. No. If you've ever seen that episode of SpongeBob with the magic conch, whenever Squidward is like asking all the questions, and it's just like, no. That's how that situation was. Baby, no. We get another transition, and it's baby, and she's being a nasty ass bitch, doing some necrophilia type shit up there, like cuddling with some fucking skeletons. But we do get a little bit of titty, so I'm here for it. Bill is slightly uncomfortable, and he tries to back up a little bit, but she just keeps inching closer, and he says that it's getting pretty late, and she says, oh, it's not past my bedtime. And then she asks if he's flirting with her, and here it is again, no. And then she tries to unbutton his shirt. But here's where my question is, baby, what were you gonna do unbuttoning that shirt, and that man is wearing overalls? No. What the fuck? And so the rest of the group finally show up to the house. Denise asks to use baby's phone, and Mother Firefly shows up and tells them that they don't have a phone. There's nobody around that she wants to jaw flap with. Understandable. She takes the seat next to Chris Hardwick, and he is intent on seeing her titties because she has a nice rack. Like, her face can go on and get, because them yellow ass teeth was driving me crazy. But that was a nice rack. I'm just saying. And so she sends baby to go check on RJ in the car, and she sits and chats with the group, and Chris Hardwick is kind of being a little bit of a dick, and Mother Firefly takes offense to that. Baby returns and tells Mother that Tiny is home and that RJ went to the scrapyard to find a new wheel. And Mary's like, how long will that take? And Mother says, at least a couple of hours. So Mary freaks out and is like, a couple of hours? And so Denise is like, can Tiny take us to a phone? And they laugh and they say, Tiny doesn't own a car. He doesn't even own a bicycle. Okay, but can y'all drive me somewhere? Like, the Vic? And so Mother says that since they're going to be there for a minute, they're all invited to their Halloween Eve dinner. And so at the table, the group is sitting, and Tiny arrives, and Tiny is a giant ass man who is deaf and he does not speak. And it's very scary. If I saw him towering over me, I would have been like, homeboy, I need you to back the hell up. And so Mother comes up, and she writes him a note to go get Grandpa. And it's funny because she spells Grandpa Grampa. That's just funny to me. And we love Grandpa. Grandpa is one of the best characters of this whole movie, and it makes me very upset because I saw that he passed away in 2002, a year before the movie came out, and I'm just like, bruh, R.I.P. to the realest one. And so Mother tells them about how her husband, Earl, tried to burn down the house, and unfortunately, Tiny was stuck in the basement, so he got badly burned. All right, understandable. Upstairs, baby is playing a Ramones song, and she's getting ready for a show of some sort, and she's taunting a cheerleader who is tied up in her bed, and next to her is another dead cheerleader. Gross. At the table, Grandpa and Tiny have arrived, and it's dessert time. Mother tells everyone to put on their masks. They can't have dessert in their everyday faces, but Mary is very hesitant. Grandpa makes her put it on, and he says, she won't let us eat if everyone ain't wearing these damn things. And so she puts it on, and they start dessert. And of course, Chris Hardwick has to come in with the Dr. Satan shit. And so Otis comes up finally, and he's holding a jar that has a fetus in it. And Mother's like, oh my God, my boy Otis, you came down to hang out with us. And then she sees that he's holding the jar, and she's like, oh, my baby Leroy. I'm sorry, what? You just have a fetus named Leroy and it's in a jar? What the fuck? And he interrupts and he says that he knows all about what he wants to know about. And Otis says that Spaulding doesn't know shit about Dr. Satan. And Chris Hardwick says that the story like had to come from somewhere. And Grandpa is like, are you a cub reporter for the Daily Asshole? And Otis says that they don't want to know the full story. They should want to leave with their brains filled with rainbows and puppies. But Grandpa's like, he wants to know. Tell him the story. But then the clock chimes and dinner's over and it's time for the show. We are now at one of my favorite parts of this movie, and it's where Grandpa's on stage. And I think he's doing some sort of comedy skit. And again, the lighting is being played with a little bit with that red and blue lighting and white lighting. And he says some hilarious lines like,
Eat your mom's pussy! Starts licking and chomping on her pussy, and she's screaming and yelling, and she just... Ah! The old battle action. Holmes out to crush my balls. Ah! You be quiet. You're gonna wake up Grandma!
just screaming, and I'm here for it. And then he presents the next act, and it's Baby. And she has on a full get-up, and she's ready to lip sync. And so the boys are totally entranced in it, but the girls absolutely hate it. They can sense her awful nature, and that's what I love about having women intuition. We can just tell when someone's a shit person. And so when Baby comes down to the crowd, she sits on Bill's lap, and Mary is not having it. She gets up, yells, and is like, "Get the fuck off him, you stupid slut," and pushes her to the ground. But Baby, she ain't playing. She pulls out a switchblade and is like,
I'll fucking cut your tits off and shove them down your throat. Baby, stop!
yikes. Mother comes up and holds her back. But then RJ comes up and says that the car is ready. So the group leaves. And so in the car, the group is trying to leave, but Baby comes up and jump scares the hell out of them. And they drive off, but they do have to stop so Bill can open up the gate. So he gets out and he is unfortunately attacked by one of the scarecrows that were surrounding the gate. Everyone in the car is flipping the hell out. Chris Hardwick goes to help, but then also gets his ass whooped. Then another scarecrow joins in on the beating, and the girls are just like screaming in the car. They don't know what's going on. They close one of the doors. They try to lock it. And one of the scarecrows takes off their masks, and it's Otis. And then another one takes off their mask, and it's Tiny. And so the girls are like, oh my God, we're safe in this locked car. But nope, they're fucking not. Tiny comes up and he breaks one of the windows, drags Denise out of the car. And as Denise is being dragged away, Otis is like scaring the fuck out of Mary by like beating up the car, just beating it all to hell. And then coming up and like standing on the roof of it. Not the roof. It was like the hood of the car, and is like jumping up and down and shit, and it like fades out to Mary just screaming in the backseat. And so it's now morning, Halloween morning to be exact, and RJ has emerged from the house and he's gonna go tow their car away. Okay. And so at Denise's dad's house, Mr. Willis, he calls the police station because she never showed up. And so the chief on the other end is like, all right, we'll do what we can to get a check on it. And so at the Firefly house, Mary wakes up and she is tied up with a gag in her mouth and a dunce cap on. I think it's a dunce cap, not a dunce cap. It's D-U-N-C-E. I don't know what those are from. I used to see them whenever I was a kid and I never understood it. I'm just going to say it's a dunce cap. So she has her little dunce cap on and she starts kind of screaming a little bit even though she has a gag in. And Otis is yelling. He's like, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to do some work. And then he emerges and he's like, have you ever even worked before?
Well, I ain't talking about no goddamn white socks with Mickey Mouse on one side and Donald Duck on the other. I ain't reading no funny books, mama.
And so he says that our bodies come and go, but this blood, pointing at this blood on his hand, is forever. And he just looks nasty and like he's dirty and he just stinks. And I literally would not want him coming into my store on a Tuesday afternoon. I would be scared. And so he says that he's going to remove her gag and that if she makes a noise, he is going to gut her like a pig and make her eat her own intestines. Disgusting. He takes it off and she asks why he's doing this and where's Bill. And he's like, oh, Bill, I couldn't have asked for a better specimen. He says that Bill is okay. And Denise is like, where is he? We get a slight cutscene of Bill tied up on what looks to be a rack of some sort. And Baby and Otis come into the room. And Baby turns on the song Brick House. And Otis starts to torture Bill with a fucking straight razor. He's like cutting his face and stuff. And all the while, Baby's just watching on and fucking She's a Brick House is playing in the background. And so Otis then severs Bill's right hand. And I am disgusted. I am disgusted. And so it cuts back to Mary and she's crying and begging to see Bill. And I personally don't think that she really wants to see Bill, but okay, girlfriend, if that's what you want. And so Otis turns her chair around and reveals behind some curtain that Bill has literally been turned into a fish boy. Bill is big dead, and it's gross, but at the same time, this effect is one of the many reasons why I love this movie, because it looks great. I'm pretty sure that it actually really was Rainn Wilson posing right there. And the fact that the transition from like the torso to the fishtail, it seems so seamless. It's beautiful. And I just love beautiful effects. And so back at Mary, she's crying and saying it can't be real. But Otis is like, it's as real as I want it to be, mama. And then he comes over and kisses her on the fucking mouth. And I bet his breath smells like fucking tooth decay and rotting eggs. And it's nasty. Back at Spaulding's, I have missed him. Sheriff Wydell and Deputy Nash arrive and they go inside. And Wydell rings the bell at the counter an absurd amount of times, 11 to be exact, and Spaulding comes out yelling something about how he's gonna rip someone's nuts off until he realizes that it's the police out there. Wydell says that he wants to ask him about some missing kids, and Spaulding says that he don't know nothing about nothing. But then Wydell shows him a picture of Denise, and Spaulding is like, yeah, cute girl, but she's not my type. He likes them with a little more meat on them because...
The bigger the cushion, the sweeter the pushing.
And so Nash tells him that he just needs to answer the fucking question. They don't want to know about his love life. And Wydell asks what he saw, who she was with, and where they were going. And so Spaulding gives them what information that he has and says that they were asking questions about Dr. Satan. So... he drew them a map to Old Farm Road and that it wouldn't really do them any harm. And so he then says that they probably got themselves turned around, ass backwards, and got themselves lost. And so Wydell like grabs him and is like, draw out that fucking map for me. So he's like, all right, I got you. And so then there's this weird inverted color transition, and it's this man talking, I think, about Bigfoot and how Bigfoot may have had sexual relations with his wife. And then I think it's Denise that we see running. I'm not really sure because it's inverted in fucking color. And she runs up to Dr. Satan's grave and he emerges and it's just really odd. And so then Denise wakes up and she has some shitty makeup on and she's tied to a bed. And I think she's in the basement, but I'm not sure. Tiny comes in and he's wearing a shirt that says cheap ass Halloween costume. And I'm here for it. I want that shirt. And he pours himself some cereal and even offers Denise some. And he then just eats the fuck out of it. And he's also eating out of a dog bowl, which makes me really sad. And Denise is like, please let me go, Tiny. I just want to go. And he actually does let her go. Tiny waves her goodbye, but then right as Denise is trying to back out, fucking Otis pops up and throws her into a cage with some people who like kind of attack her, and it's really weird. And so cut over to Wydell and Nash. They find the group's car. Cool, awesome. Back at the Firefly house, Chris Hardwick is now awake and he's tied to a chair with some duct tape. And Baby bursts open the door like the fucking Kool-Aid man, wearing a cheerleading outfit and she says,
Hey, Poopy Pants, what's new?
And he demands to know where everyone is. And she tells him to shut up and then proceeds to make him play a guessing game. She asks what number she's thinking of and he responds with, eat shit and die. So she cuts off some of his hair and shoves it in his face. And she says that if he answers the next question right, she'll let him go. But if he answers it wrong, he's fucked. Who is her favorite movie star? He guesses Marilyn Monroe, but sorry, Chris Hardwick, it was actually Bette Davis. So she literally starts to fucking scalp him. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Back at the car, a tow truck has brought it up to the road so the police can look into it. And Nash says that he found the keys. And so he gives them to Wydell and he opens up the trunk. And it's one of the dead cheerleaders who is tied up in the trunk. And she has trick or treat like carved into her. And it's just really nasty. You hear the fucking flies buzzing. And yeah, this whole movie is a nasty pit of nastiness. Back at the Firefly house, Chris Hardwick is now tied to a wall in, I think it's Grandpa's room, and he's now basically bald. And Otis is throwing knives at him while Grandpa is watching TV. Grandpa yells to the TV something about that if he was put behind a wheel of that car, and Otis tells him that he's a useless fuck and that his big ol' ass couldn't even fit in that car. And so Grandpa's about to get up, ready to fucking fight Otis. And Otis pulls out a knife and says,
"Don't start with me, Hugo."
And so now Wydell and Nash are at a gas station. And they're waiting on Denise's dad to meet them, Mr. Willis. And he's going to go with them to come along to go farm to farm searching for the teens. And so, weird cutscene where this man named Lewis Dover is yelling about Jesus and the Lord and Satan, and he says that he knows the truth. This is hell. Yeah, it probably is, honestly. And so Wydell, Nash, and Mr. Willis arrive to the Firefly house. Wydell goes to the front door while the others go around back to look. And Mother runs into the room with Otis and Grandpa, telling them that police are there. And Otis gives Mother a gun and tells her, go downstairs and play nice. And that he's going to go to the back to take control like he always does. And as he's saying that, Grandpa, is stuck to the TV, basically, face stuck to it. And he just flips him off real quick. He's just like, oh yeah, fuck you, dude. And so Nash and Willis are now walking around the back. They're looking into sheds and chicken coops. And at one point, Nash says, you think this some bitches would have a yard sale, don't you? And as he's walking around, we get a funny part where he is scared by this barking dog that's tied up. And he explains how he was bit by a Cocker Spaniel when he was 8 years old, and how it was his girlfriend's dog, and how it almost bit off his pinky toe. And so then they start hearing some noises coming from a shed of some sort. Meanwhile, back inside, or back at the front door, I should say, Mother opened it for Wydell, and he asks if she's seen Denise, and she says no and tries to shut the door. But he stops her and is like, let me come in for a minute. And after, a little, not argument necessarily, but he's like, you know what? Just let me the fuck in. She's like, all right, that's fine. And so in the back, Nash and Willis break open the shed, and it's Mary, I think, tied up, and there's 3 dead bodies surrounding her. Wydell is inside now and gets radioed from Nash, but ends up getting shot in the neck by Mother. And then Willis, in the back, he gets shot twice from behind. Otis done found them back there. And Otis makes Nash get on his knees. And he takes his sweet ass time shooting this man in the head. He literally is like, kneel. And he stares at him for what seems to be at least 30 to 45 seconds. And then he shoots him in the head. And it's very uncomfortable. It makes me just uncomfy how long the shot lingered. Because it was just like, okay, is he going to shoot him already? And so that night, Baby is wearing her assless jeans. And she took a trip to Red Hot Pussy Liquors. She and RJ are there to buy hella liquor. And she messes with the cashier a little bit. And she says,
Yeah, we like to get fucked up and do fucked up shit, you know what I mean?
And of course the cashier is like, I like to do that too. Get fucked up and do some fucked up shit. And so then he's like, it's $185. She pays for it. She calls him Goober, even though his name is G. Ober. And then they leave. And so back at the house, oh man, Otis has a fire idea for Halloween. But first, downstairs, the family is getting drunk while Mary, Denise, and Chris Hardwick are tied up in the middle of the room. And they're all dressed, or those main three, are dressed in rabbit costumes. Mother asks where Otis is, and Baby says that he's coming down soon, but he has something real special planned. He makes his way to the room, and we see a skinned dead body on a couch. At that moment, I realized he skinned Mr. Willis. And so he starts walking up, and he's like saying all this stuff, and he's like, "Who's your daddy?" And he's like, "I'm the one that brings the Halloween candy." "Who's your daddy?" And so then he walks up to fucking Denise and like pushes the skin to his face so he could like lick her. In that moment, she still did not realize that that was not her dad. She really thought that was her dad up there saying, "Oh, daddy, oh." And it literally took him taking off his robe and her seeing like that the skin was not connected for her to realize that that's not her fucking dad. Like, the eye holes did not give it away, friend. Come on now. And so Otis talks to Chris Hardwick and tells him, "Oh, you want to see Dr. Satan? I'll let you meet Dr. Satan." And so now we cut to the family walking, and there's this fog on the ground, and there are 3 rabbits, Chris Hardwick, D. Nice, and Mary. They're all being dragged along by chains, and it's very ominous, and I'm here for it because like the creep factor right here is so nice. It's like there's like this bluish, like dark background, and there's like all this fog everywhere, and like all you see are just these people walking along, and then the 3 rabbits, you know, chained up, just following along. It's very ominous. And so Tiny has brought up a grave, and Chris Hardwick is forced inside. Baby tells Otis to take his gag out, that it's more fun when they hear the screams. And so Chris Hardwick then pleads for them not to kill them, but Baby mocks him. "Oh, please don't kill us. Oh." And then Mother Firefly gives Chris Hardwick a big old fat kiss before RJ places him in the coffin. Mary decides, "I'm gonna make a run for it," so she tries to run the fuck off, but then Otis tries to shoot her, but then Baby is like, I'm gonna go get her. And so Baby takes off running after Mary, and while Mary's running, it's intercut with like this footage of Otis talking about how humans run like scared little rabbits, and every so often he yells, "Run, rabbit! Run, rabbit! Run, rabbit!" And so Mary ends up tripping and falling, and now she's in a graveyard, and Baby is like talking in the background a little bit, and she's saying like, "I'm gonna get you, Mary, I'm gonna get you." And then she starts talking about some story about like a rabbit in a cabbage field. I don't fucking know. And so then Mary gets caught off guard, and Baby runs up and like attacks her, brutally stabs her to death, and now Mary is big dead. And after stabbing her, Baby says,
"Shoo, shoo, said the maiden."
"What the hell are you talking about, girl? I don't understand." And so then Denise is placed in the coffin, and RJ puts the lid on, and they're being lowered down into this hole, and they're suspended over some like water, and then the lid is put over the hole, and so Denise and Chris Hardwick are in complete darkness. And then the family lowered down a lantern and a tape recorder, and the tape recorder is playing like this scary mumbled monologue that literally sounds like that's literally how it sounds, and it creeps me the hell out. I hate shit like that. I don't know, it's just ugh. And so these skeleton people end up coming up and like attacking the coffin. They drag Chris Hardwick away, but then they leave Denise. And so she's able to crawl out, and we hear Chris Hardwick screaming in the distance, "Denise, help me! Denise, they're getting me!" And so then Denise sees someone, and they approach her, but it's just some like random man also dressed in a bunny costume, and he comes up to steal her bunny costume. And so she's left in this ugly ass dress, and she wanders down like the halls of like this underground like cave tunnel thing. And so meanwhile, up on the regular people level, not in the ground, on surface level. There we go. A bonfire has been made so the family can, I guess, sacrifice Mary's body to Dr. Satan. I don't really understand that part. And so Denise is running, she finds a door and she opens it and she finds Dr. Satan's lair. There, it's like all red lighting. You see these 3 people sitting around and they look like all types of fucked up. And then we see that my boy, the dumbass of the movie, Chris Hardwick, has now become a victim to Dr. Satan. His head has been cut open and Dr. Satan is giving him a brain surgery of some sort. It's gross. It's messy. It's Dr. Satan. Oh, and then Dr. Satan himself, he literally looks like Tales from the Crypt looking motherfucker, and like he has on like an oxygen mask, and then like he's being controlled by like these metal things, and he's like all creaky and shit. And I'm pretty sure he also speaks German as well, and it's just scary. But then Earl, remember Mother Firefly's husband, he comes up and he looks like the fucker from My Bloody Valentine. And he is ready to hunt down Denise for some reason. And so she runs into the tunnels again and Earl chases behind her. Back with the family, they set the bonfire ablaze along with Mary's body. Back down to Denise. She's running for like 5 million hours until she's cornered and Earl is coming up to her. But his stupid ass went to go swing his axe to like kill her. And he ended up like cutting into this piece of wood that was like holding the whole fucking ceiling up. And so yeah, the ceiling then falls in on him. And yeah, that's kind of well deserved. That's why you don't attack people that you don't know, sir. That's karma. And so Denise eventually finds her way out via a hole in the ground. And she, makes her way to the road, stumbles to the road. Luckily, someone is driving by. It's someone in a pink convertible. And I'm like, okay, boy, it's motherfucking Spalding. I am so happy to see him. So she says that she got away. And she's like, I just need a doctor. And he's like, a bunch of people have been looking for you. You just relax. I'll get you to a doctor. We all feel safe. We feel like the movie's going to be over. She's going to go see a doctor. But then motherfucking Otis pops up from the back seat, like ready to finish the job. But then it quick transitions. Fucking Denise. She was so close. But now we're in Dr. Satan's lair. She has now become a victim of Dr. Satan. And the movie closes out with Denise screaming. And then there's the little, like, end card that says, "The end?" ? And then the movie fucking ends. Guys. This movie is a lot. It really is a lot. And I really wish Hannah was able to be here right now to record this with me so she can tell you how she felt about it. Because, man, like, we sat together, we watched this movie. Like I said, I've seen it before. And, like, the whole time she was just like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, it's one of those movies. And I warned her beforehand because I don't want to be that person that's, like, making someone just watch a really, really fucked up movie. I'm not like that. So I'm like, hey, like, just letting you know, this movie is really, really weird. It's very fucked up. But it's not so fucked up to the point that it's like Terrifier or anything, but it's just messy. I was like, literally Universal dropped it, MGM dropped it, and Lionsgate released it. Like, it was convoluted as hell. So yeah, I wish she was here so you guys could hear her take on it. But maybe next time she's back, I'll have her tell you guys how she feels about it. But me personally, like I said in the beginning, that, 6 out of 10, that's how I feel about it. It's a great movie. It's very colorful. Like I said last week, it kind of feels like a music video, but it's not really a music video because it's actually a horror movie. And it's just, the perfect amount of chaos that I need. Like, I can still follow the movie and everything, but I love the chaos. And it's like all up in your face, boom, boom, boom. And yeah, I fucking love it. And then next week, y'all, I'm having a special guest on, and we're going to be covering The Devil's Rejects. I can say we are not going to be covering Three from Hell. I am so sorry. That movie is garbage and should have never even existed. So we're just going to act as though it's before the year of, I think that came out in 2020, maybe 2021. We're going to act like it's the year of 2019 and that movie just doesn't exist, okay? Because for a long time, this one came out in 2003, Devil's Rejects came out in 2005. It was about 15 years after Devil's Rejects came out that they came out with Three from Hell. So yeah, that one just doesn't exist in my opinion. So yes, next week, Devil's Rejects. Everyone, don't forget, we're going to be having those subscriptions around the first week of November. And then also, y'all, the month of October, it's going to be so hype. I have so much planned for that month. Oh my gosh. I am so fucking pumped for Halloween, y'all. Oh, so just don't miss out. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. We are at Morgue Pod on most of them. All of those links will be down below in the description. Oh, and then also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning about subscriptions. So I think I'm going to be doing subscriptions on Spotify as well as Patreon, just so the people that aren't able to be on Spotify, they're also able to get that bonus content. And we're also going to be doing little like previews and stuff for that content, just so you guys aren't like left in the dark. Pricing wise, I think we're going to do $3.99. There will be one new episode a month, or not one new episode a month. Whoa, one new episode a week, like an extra episode. So that's going to be basically 4 new episodes a month. So I feel like $1 an episode, that's not too bad, you know? Especially for what all we're going to be talking about. It's going to be true crime. It's going to be all types of movies. It's going to be just like little chit chat sessions. We're going to have special guests, and y'all, like, oh my gosh, I have so much planned. Oh, and let me just tell you real quick. One thing that is definitely for sure going to happen on those subscriptions, my sister and I are going to cover Beer Fest. If you haven't already seen Beer Fest, go watch that. It's hilarious. And we have a drinking game too that will ensure that you will definitely be drunk 2/3 of the way in the movie. Like, mwah, chef's kiss. So anyways, I will see you guys back next week for Devil's Rejects, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's always weird recording by myself, so I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I did. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.